And here we are. I was trying to keep count of all of your books, all of the series, and I was really trying to arrive prepared, and then I gave up. I thought, no, that's too much. How many? Every time. And then there is, I thought, oh, that's the latest book. No, there is a new one. He's already writing. So that's amazing. How do you do it?
It's all I do. I have no other hobbies. I have no interests. I'm not very interesting. I'm not very social. I don't collect things. I don't have hobbies. So this is pretty much all I do. A lot of people, I was thinking this recently, that a lot of people, when they have their downtime, they're doing something creative, right? They want to paint, they want to write, or they want to do something like that. But that's sort of all I do. So it's the only thing I'm good at, the only thing I have talent for. And so I do a lot of it. The other answer is I don't really know. It's getting a little crazy, but we'll see how long I'm able to do it.
That's amazing. Also, because for how long now are you writing books plus series on the streamers?
So I've been writing books for 32 or 33, 34 years, something like that.
Gosh.
I've been working, TV's newer, so I think my first TV show I probably started to film around 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
But it's been really busy those last 7 or 8 years. I think, there's 7 right now on Netflix, and I think there's 3 others that aren't on Netflix. So I just finished another one that'll be on Amazon Prime, so that's 10 or 11.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I remember when an Italian publisher asked me to write a book, about business, my boring stuff. Yeah. And I thought, all right, I mean, shouldn't be too hard, and then I started to write this book, and I thought, it will never happen. So I had to get a ghostwriter and say, guys, I can't write. I'm not able to write, basically. My Italian is horrible. My English is horrible now. So I can't speak anymore. I can't write. And no, I was really impressed how hard it is to wake up and constantly write. Even if you write some boring business thing, I don't even want to imagine how you do it with, with stories and I wonder if you got a sort of formula after so many years that you say, well, some guidelines should be this.
I don't really. Every time I try to find a formula, the formula stops working, and I have to change whatever I'm doing. But I think the one constant is that I have no other talent or ability. So,
right.
You say that, but it's all I do all day is think about stories. I often say that there's 3 things that make a writer. 2 are obvious, 1 isn't so obvious. So the 2 obvious ones, inspiration. You have to be inspired to write, of course, and have ideas. 2 is perspiration. That is actually writing the book. And as you probably learned when you were doing it, only writing is writing. Thinking of ideas is not writing. Creating characters is not writing. Going to Starbucks with your friends is not writing. Even reading is not writing. Only writing is writing. Getting your butt in a chair and producing pages is writing. So those are the first 2. But the third one, which I think is extraordinarily important, maybe the most important, so we have inspiration, we have perspiration. And the third is desperation. And that is, I'm not fit to do anything else, like hold a real job, go out in public, wake up in the morning and go to a pharmacy to sell nail clippers. I wouldn't be good at any of that. And so that fear that if I don't do this, I'd have to get a real job. And if people are listening to this right now while driving in the car, I really admire you, but that fear that I would have to have a real job, being honest, is one of the things that drives me back to the table to make sure in the laptop and the pad to write and produce pages and to tell stories, because I'm forgetful, I'm disorganized, I'm bad at math. I would be a disaster. I had a real job for 8 years before I started to write. I was really bad at it. So recognizing that and having that desperation, I think, inspires me.
I love it. You know what? I'm with you with the desperation thing. And for 10 years now, I keep this image in front of me. It's like an image of a job of the office where I was working many years ago. And it's got little bars at the window. One of the saddest place in the universe, and I always keep it in front of me and say, I don't want to be back there, no matter what, you know.
Yeah,
So
look,
that's very
most people, right, and I have nothing but admiration for whatever people do, but that's one of the, there's a lot of things that feed a writer, desperation. Also, writers by and large are insecure. You don't necessarily want to admit it. We have this very weird, it's actually a contradiction, but on the one hand, we all think we stink and we all think we're bad. Only bad writers think they're good. If you have a writer who's on your show saying, "Oh, this is really good," believe me, they're not a good writer. All writers have those doubts and insecurities. On the other hand, while I think I'm terrible all the time, I'm also writing saying, "Oh, I'm going to write a 500-page thing, and you're going to actually pay me to read it." So I know that sounds like a double standard, this sort of insecurity with hubris, but I think that weird mix and weird blend is also what creates a writer.
Yeah, now I was thinking, I understand why I'm a bad writer, because at the beginning I thought I was very good, and then it lasted for
That's a
3 days,
disaster.
and I realized
That's a recipe for disaster.
so it doesn't work. But what I was curious about this is a skill that was always with you when you were a kid. You were a writer like that. Oh, my son is such a good writer. It is something that you just discovered. Did you study for it? How did it explode, this incredible talent?
Well, first, it always drives me crazy whenever there's a number of things that writers say that drive me crazy. And always when you're talking to writers, there's always the writer who says, "I always knew I would be a writer.
Right.
When I was a 7-month-old fetus, a pen
Yeah.
formed in my mother's womb and I started to write sonatas. And when I was growing up, children gathered around me in the playground and I would tell them stories. In my neighborhood, if you tried that, you got beaten up. And I didn't
Yeah.
grow up in a tough neighborhood. So I never really quite buy that. I always loved story. I was always a pretty decent writer, but I was actually, when I was younger, I was probably better at math than I was at it. And it's just some stage in my life later on, I went to, I worked in the Costa del Sol of Spain as a tour guide. Back in the days when Thompson used to send those charters of young people down there. And I just, I want to write a book about this experience. I'd never really had any training other than normal school training for it. And I sat down and wrote an entire novel. The novel was terrible, but I got the bug from that. And then I started to write what I love. You can call it crime or whatever. I call it the novel of immersion. The book that you take on vacation when you go to the Costa del Sol, but you don't want to leave your hotel room because you have to know what happened to Myron and Wynne and Laura and all the people that are in these books that become more important to you, and you stay up late at night. And that's the feeling I want to give my readers. And so that's, I wouldn't say self-taught, but that's sort of how I started to do it. And writing is one of the few activities where quantity will inevitably make quality the more you try it. You mentioned you tried writing a book. If you said to me, "I'm a very good athlete, and so I just went out on a basketball court, never played before, but I wasn't very good." Well, of course you're not very good. You have to work at it. So it's the same thing with writing. There's very few naturals. You need a certain amount of natural ability, and then you have to, try it and work at it and practice it.
Yeah. But trust me, Harlan, even if I write, I will never be a good. I'm 99% sure about it.
Well,
But I'll try. I'll try to
you
do
could also
more.
play basketball and really be bad at it no matter how much you practice. So it's the same thing. I get it. Yeah.
It's funny because yesterday I was a professional table tennis player when I was young, and my 13 years old son, for the last 2 days, convinced himself that he can beat me at table tennis. We have a table tennis, and he just think, if we play for 3 hours every day, I will beat you, just 1 set to 11. And I say, look, it's impossible. You can't win because you don't have the technique. You don't know how to play.
Exactly.
But he still think, no, if I just do it. So definitely you also did some great skills, but definitely quantity is so important. Put in the effort, the practice. How do you organize your day? Is it like fixed? So you say, I wake up and I write, or is whenever you feel it, you do it? How does it work?
Boy, I wish in the old days I had a fairly decent schedule where When my kids were young, especially, I would get them to whatever school they were going to. I'd have them there by 8 or 8:30. Then I'd find a place, a coffee shop or wherever I was going to work at, and I would work from 8 till about noon or 1, and then do some of the business stuff in the afternoon. My life is not as well scheduled anymore, especially with the TV stuff, because I never really know when something like that's going to pop up. So I try. It's best if somebody's listening and wants to be a writer. It is best to be sort of organized in the sense that you have to do a certain amount every day. I'm not as good at that as I used to be. At the same time, I think about it all the time. It's always in my head. I'm a very rude guest. I drift
Mm.
off a lot. I'm not listening to you a lot when people are talking to me because all of a sudden I'm coming up with an idea or how to solve a problem or an issue. I live with it a lot. So by the time I sit down to write it, I've pretty much got a lot of it written already in my head. The
I see.
actual writing at this stage of my career takes less time because I already have worked it all out in my head. But that said, you're best off working a certain amount of hours if you can a day. And I'm hoping, I shouldn't say I'm hoping to return to that because, for example, I'm going to London tomorrow, and I'll be in meetings all day for 2 days on different TV series that we're working on. And so I won't be able to write. That's just the realism of my life right now. It's a champagne problem. I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me, but it just means that the writing will be different.
It's a super happy problem, but it's still
Yes, it
something
is. It's great.
to solve. And yeah, and you're in Italy now, and I heard that you like won a prestigious award, another one. I don't know how many awards you won, so I don't know if it's like number 155 or. But an award is always still good.
Yes, it's better than not getting an award, I guess. But you're never as good as your last award, and you're never as bad as the one you lost. So that's how I look at it. It's a tremendous honor to be here in Milan, and it's the funny thing is I was saying it's a lifetime achievement award, and I'm like, I'm a little young for a lifetime achievement award. It's very very grateful, but it feels like I have to die now, I guess, or something like that to justify it. So
That's
it's
cool.
been
I
it's
like
been a
that.
real privilege
But
and honor to be here.
I find it fascinating this global approach that you somehow need to have. And I was wondering, how do you, because cultures can be very different. For instance, if I live in UK, when I do one of my silly jokes here, people look at me like, that's not funny. It's very racist. Or, like Italians, we have a sense of humor that it doesn't really work in UK. And probably a British person in Italy, it's a humor that we don't really get it. So how do you write a story that is somehow universal, global and universal, and it works in different countries and also in different format, because it has to work on a book and then has to work in a movie or in a series. This is for me is like is impossible.
Well, there's two sort of answers. The first is the book. Let's talk about the book. I have found, interestingly enough, the more specific I am in my book, the more universal the appeal. The more my books are very sort of New Jersey, the more that they'll appeal to people in Korea and Bulgaria and Italy and everywhere else in the world. If I try, though, to say, you know what, people aren't really reading it in Bulgaria, I'm going to make it more like every town, or then it doesn't work. So the more specific you are, the more universal. Think about there's things in New Jersey. Think about Sinatra. Think about Springsteen. Think about The Sopranos. Those are very, very New Jersey. And the more New Jersey they are, the more universal the appeal. I think people maybe enjoy about learning about other cultures or whatever. So it's a very big danger for a novelist to think, ooh, I have to find a way to appeal to my Polish audience. And then you become more generic. So in terms of writing the book. In terms of doing the adaptations, what helps is that I don't want to stay slavishly devoted to my novel, the text. I think the worst adaptations are the ones that just try to follow the book, because a book is one thing, and TV is a visual medium. A novel is not. A novel, I can get into your head, I can get into their head. It's just a different sort of a thing. So when I'm doing a series, if I choose to do it in Poland or in Spain or in France or in England or wherever, I will happily make changes that will work visually and maybe not stay so true to the book.
I
So
see.
that's my answer for how I try to make it work anyway.
Interesting. That the more personal you are, the more universal you become, sort
The
of.
more I try, if I'm sitting in my hometown in New Jersey or I'm in New York City and I'm writing about that place, the more I say, "Hey, like you just said, they may not get this joke because it's American, so maybe I'll try to make the joke something that will appeal." No, it won't work. If that joke fails as a specific joke, it fails, but it has to be specific in order to be universal. It's true for, I have a friend who's in the clothing industry, and his clothes are very, very unique with these weird, weird colors. So they're very, and whenever he tried to make them less weird colors, colors that maybe would appeal to more people, his business went down because
Right.
he had to be specifically what he was to have the universal appeal.
Interesting. I'll think about it, and I'll try to
I might be
apply
wrong.
to all of my. Yeah,
It
it's
works for me,
interesting
but I might be wrong.
because my idea was that you had to, maybe do a research, a global research, different countries, and then they feed you back and say, all right, this is in, this is out, this kind of thing. But this is much more efficient approach. Otherwise, you feel like you can't say anything because in every country maybe has some topic that they don't really want to talk about, or they are I don't know. So that's an interesting approach. I like it. Harlan, how was the transition to the series world, to the production world? How did it happen?
It's been interesting because being a novelist, I'm an introvert. I've spent most of my life alone in a room. I'm a socially adept introvert. I can talk to you like this now, and I've been talking to people, and I'll talk to people today. And then because I'm an introvert, I'll lose all energy and just want to sleep and be
Yeah,
and not want anybody
fun
near
to
me. But it actually has worked in terms of writing, where uh, when I'm on set for a few days, it's really energetic and it's fun and interesting and all that, and a lot of people. But then I got to lock myself in a room and write. And then when I'm writing too long and I get kind of a little bit lonely and realize I had to get out of this room a little bit, I can go on set and be productive there. So far, they're feeding off each other rather than just stealing from one another. I mean,
yeah.
obviously, time-wise, one has to suffer a little bit, but so far it's just making me do more because I can go back and forth.
I see. I read on the internet, so maybe it's wrong. I don't know, but I read online that you signed a deal, I think, with Netflix, like for 5 books, but 5 adaptations of 5 books, something like that. And I was thinking, do you already know what the books will be, or they just say, look, Harlan, we love you. Your next 5 books, no matter what, are good for us. How does it work that?
Well, my deal with Netflix right now is they control all the novels that I've written that have not yet been produced, except for 1 or 2 that are in production with other people. I just finished a show for Amazon Prime, for example, in New Jersey, America, right near where I live. We filmed it. So they have, but they can pick, we pick and choose. It's not like they say, "Oh, this is definitely going to be one. This one's not definitely not going to be one." It's together. There's some books, for example, I think would not make good TV series. So I'll say, let's just leave those ones aside. Some that'll work in some countries. Where you are in the UK, we've done 3. We've done The Stranger, Stay Close. Actually, we've done 2, 2 book novels. Then we've done 2 original ideas, Safe and The Five. So I'm going to do 2 more in the UK that will be based on novels. But it's not like completely my decision or completely their decision. We sort of discuss, we sort of figure out which country would be the best place to have it, which story would work well, and it becomes a collaborative process. But mostly for me, it's mostly, if not almost exclusively soon, going to be Netflix doing that with me.
I see. So, and they also have options for the future books. So
Yep.
if you say, look, okay, got it.
Yeah, so for
So
5 years, I think I just signed a new deal. Maybe it's 4 years. I don't remember now. So I just signed a new deal for next 4 years. All the novels and any ideas I come up with, we're going to try to make into series all over the world. I've done Netflix Spain, I've done Netflix France, I've done Netflix Poland, Netflix UK, Netflix USA. So we're trying to do make it international.
But usually, is it right if I say that normally an author maybe write great books, and then an agent stop by and say, "Look, we want the rights to produce, a movie or series. We will pay you. You have the rights of the books, but we'll do it." And bye bye. You'll see it at the cinema or on Netflix or wherever. In your case, you are involved in the production, so you have a very active role. Why did that happen, and how did that happen?
Well, I used to do that. I used to option books, and they would either come out being something I really didn't like, or
Right.
it wouldn't happen at all. So when I did The Five, for example, in the UK, it was an original idea. I had to stay actively involved because it wasn't a novel. And once I started to do that, I felt that I was actually not bad at it. And I felt that for what I was doing, I could be an asset, not a hindrance. A lot of novelists are a hindrance because they want to stick to the novel. They don't want to. That I saw things differently in terms of TV. I found some great partners to work with, and so I became involved. And now it's sort of it's just part of what it is. Netflix wants me involved. It's just part of what we do. I'm not just looked at as the novelist. I'm looked at as the executive producer and showrunner. It's a different skill set, but it's one that I've really sort of enjoyed developing.
I am chatting now to produce a series for a streamer. I can't reveal the secret
I understand.
name, and it's a very private deal,
Yes.
monster deal. But anyway, and what I'm impressed is that for me, I work a lot on social media, do a lot of startups, do a lot of these things, and it's so quick, everything. So I don't know, we have this chat, and then will be added. Maybe tomorrow is on. It's everything very fast. And I had this first conversation, and they say, look, probably will take 1.5 years, and it's a very, very short time. 1.5 years. I think, wow, 1.5 years. I don't even know if I'm alive in 1.5 years. So how do you deal with this long-term preparation? And because I think I don't know how the world will be in 2 years, in 3 years. How can I be relevant with my story there? I was wondering, how do you deal with that?
What can you do? You just have to write in the world that you know, and sort of hope and hope it works. I've also been writing novels for a long time. So if I'm writing a novel, if I start today, it won't be out for at least 1.5 years, usually more like 2 years. So I'm used to it. I try to make things again that are a little bit timeless. But you're right. I mean, it's always a problem. I spoke to somebody recently who wrote a book. If you were trying to write, if you were, remember the TV show on HBO Veep? If you were to try to make that now, with how crazy our political world is, it wouldn't work. You really couldn't do it now. So things change, and you just have to be prepared for it. But even, I was just finishing up a TV series in the U.S. And one
Right.
day, in the middle of it, not very long ago, our lead got COVID and couldn't be there, and we couldn't postpone this really huge scene. So I had to completely reimagine and rewrite the scene for the other characters instead of him, just because he couldn't be there. So even at the last second, you're constantly making changes. That's part of what TV is. You'll see whatever you write and you start filming, things are going to change. You'll find an actor that's doing something better or different. And as opposed to a book, it's always alive. It's always changing.
I see. It's a very interesting period, Harlan, this one, for content production, by the way, because there are so many players that 20 years you didn't have, Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon, and blah, blah, blah. There are so many investing so much. And also, I think, experimenting much more than before. Of course, you have the blockbuster movies, the superheroes, but you have a lot of different, how do you say in English, genre, like
Mhm.
different sectors, different kind of stories, niche stuff. So that's interesting. Is it something that you see keep going like that, or will be some sort of let's say few players, merge and acquisition, and so then we go back in a situation when there are few players and you just work with them?
I have absolutely no idea. I never
Right.
really, and the thing is, as a creator, I try to ignore. I've always tried to ignore the business end of it. It sounds
Right.
naive, but even with my books, is it going to be independent bookstores? Is it going to be chain bookstores? Is it going to be ebooks? Is it going to be audio? And I can't control any of that. All I can control is how good the story is. And if the story is good enough, you're going to find it, right? You're going to, if whichever one of those wins, independent stores, chain stores, ebooks, audio, stone tablets, whatever it is, whatever it's going to win, if you have the good content, if you will, you're going to be okay. So I always just sort of focus on making the best one I can make. Now, these streamer services have changed the world in terms of what I do in a really great way. I couldn't have done shows that were 6 or 8 or 10 episodes with one story. You couldn't do those a number of years ago. And it would be like Law and Order or CSI, where you had to have 22 episodes a season, and you had a beginning and you had an end, and each episode solved the crime, and that wouldn't really be interesting to me. So my guess is that we will continue, because we always do, push in the direction of having even more creativity, and there'll be even more players. Maybe some of them will be small, but I don't know. And also, the cost of making a show can change. I mean, despite how expensive it is, if you tomorrow can, if you're out there and you want to be a filmmaker and you're a kid, you can get your iPhone or a decent camera and make a reasonably decent film. If the story
Right.
is good enough, someone may notice it.
Got it. I like to focus on doing good content, and then whatever happen basically. But you still have a great asset, basically a great content there. I watched a series yesterday. Gosh, I watched so much stuff that I forget. I even forget, the the end. Like when you watch so much stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's the one with Steve Carell. Steve Carell. I love Steve Carell as an actor. The Patient, maybe, is the name. He's the psychanalyst. He is a psychologist, and he is a serial killer. And the serial killer kidnap him, and then there is the story, basically.
Mhm.
And I was really hooked. So I was with my wife, and literally, as you said before about your books, I was like going back, thinking, "Oh, we have to finish. We have to finish." And I was a little bit disappointed by the end, but that's another topic. And I was wondering why. Can you explain me technically why some series, some books like yours, some series like yours, some movies are able to hook you, and you have to stay there, and you want to go back, and other times everything looks okay, but you say, no, who cares, I'll stop it, I don't like it, uh, because it doesn't happen only on a personal subjective level. Some series have this effect on hundreds of millions of people, so there is something there. What is there that I can't see?
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I haven't seen that particular show, so I can't answer for that. What I try to do is I try to defy your expectations. I try to take things you've seen, but now see it in a slightly different way. And I have a lot of plot twists. I'm really big on plot twists.
Yeah.
I rarely met a twist I don't like. I've been accused of over twisting, and that's a fair criticism. I'd rather over twist than under twist. So that's part of it. But in my case, I think also, or at least I hope, it has to be that you care about the character. You could have the most expensive car in the world. If you don't have fuel, it's not going to go anyplace. And so I can stir your pulse and I can stir your mind. But if I don't also stir your heart, you're not going to probably stay with it. So I think the one secret, besides having all those plot twists and knowing how to deliver them in an interesting way, is if you don't really care about the character or what they're going through, doesn't mean you have to like them, but if they don't feel real to you, then you're probably going to have trouble following it. Like I say, it's the great car that has no gasoline. So the heart is the gasoline. I mean, that's how I try in my own case to create that binge, that you want to stay with this character. You want to know how, where's his wife? Where's his daughter? How is he going to get out of this mess? How is she going to find her true love? And that's how I try to do it anyway.
I see. We have like 1 minute left, but I was curious to know what's coming next in your priority checklist. Books, movies, series. What are the next things for the next 12 months?
The next novel will be out in March in the UK and the US. It's called I Will Find You. And it's
Right.
about a father who is in prison for murdering his own young 3-year-old son. And he's on the 5th year of his sentence when his sister-in-law comes and visits him in prison, and she has a photograph that was taken at an amusement park. In the background is a boy that looks very, very much like his son. And so he has to break out of prison, actually, to try to find out the truth. And then sometime also in 2023, my new Amazon Prime series, Shelter, which is based on my Mickey Bolitar novels, will start streaming on Amazon Prime sometime this year, 8 episodes. So those are the two next things that I'm looking forward to having out into the public and seeing people's reaction.
Fantastic. Can't wait to read and watch. And Harlan, thank you so much. You're
Thank you, man.
amazing, and hope to meet you soon.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.